Oh, do you want to?
I'm hiding, Jaclyn. We are live. We are live. We are live. You just got a preview of our special guest. Welcome to the Energy Ergonomics YouTube channel. We are continuing our exploration and our conversations on human design authority. I see we've got people who are joining us live today. This is an interactive discussion, so definitely jump in the chat. Please say hi. Please let us know where you are from. And since we are going to be covering two different authorities, let us know if your heart manifested, if your heart projected, or let us know if you're just here to learn about other people. A big part of this is that, like, getting clarity on the different types of intuition that exist, the different types of action that may come from that, so that we can create a more inclusive and collaborative society collective on a whole. Speaking of collaboration today, I'm bringing up Jaclyn Michelle from Interior Creature. What's so important about this is beyond the fact that y'all are going to get multiple viewpoints of human design, because there are two of us. It is not often that you see two women coming together to collaborate who sell a very similar product. We do very different things. Jaclyn is deep on the shadow work. I really take it to action and then translate it into business from a different angle. But we both are passionate about this space. We both do have group coaching programs. We both have readings. We both have memberships. So definitely check us out from that perspective. And we are coming together in collaboration because we don't believe in competition and we don't want competition in this space. This is such an important space that is continuously evolving. And the more of us that work together, the more perspectives we bring to it, the more beautiful this movement becomes. And so you are now part of this. You are now here with us. I probably should say hi. My name is Mélissa. For those of y'all who don't know me, this channel is super new. So definitely support by liking and subscribing. There's going to be more content. There's going to be more Jaclyn. There's going to be more human design goodies. And I will introduce myself formally later, but the little bit that I will say is that human design changed my life. And it changed my life when I started following my authority. So about 12 months ago, I committed to following my authority at every turn. Jaclyn can attest to the fact that it was very extreme. It was like, I'm going to do it. And no matter what happens, we're doing it. How much I have to spend, what I need to do. So I literally shut down my business, went on a whole spiritual journey. I've up-leveled so many things in my life, repaired a tenuous relationship with my husband. We were going through a rough patch after, well, we're 10 years in. So what was that, like 9 years? And so that has like helped us tremendously. I've learned to set boundaries with my family in big ways. Like I have learned about my ancestry and my origin and the fact that I come from a line of medicine women. And that the way I learned it was so woo-woo and things that were so uncomfortable and that I would have never embraced before. But this twist and turn journey has brought me back to myself. And I've picked up pieces of myself along the way that wouldn't have been possible. And what I'm bringing into the world now is phenomenal. And that all started with learning this one thing in human design that we both believe is the most important thing for you to learn. Because when you know this, it's not that the rest of the chart doesn't matter. The rest of the chart is still extremely useful.
Oh, yeah.
It's an extremely useful tool. But it means that when you get this, you will stay in alignment. And what I found is that when you're aligned with this, it kind of, for me at least, it unlocks the rest of the chart. It turns into like, oh shit, I got to look into that.
The first domino that like.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. So I'll hand it over to Jaclyn Michelle. And I need to say that Jaclyn is so amazing, right? If you're here and you've checked out other people on human design, oftentimes we see blogs, but we don't know the people behind it. This woman is phenomenal. She will change your life and she will do it in a compassionate way that's also very detailed and very specific, and that actually honors the practice of researching and really getting into a topic before you go out to market with it. And I think that is relevant in a big way because a lot of people don't go deep, and Jaclyn goes deep. So you know that when you're working with her, you're getting all of her and all that she knows of human design. And what's fun is she keeps leveling up and leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. And so we're on this journey together, and we're so excited that you're here with us. And I'm going to stop and let you introduce yourself, Jaclyn. And definitely, if you can hear our voice, let us know you can hear us. Let us know our audio is working. Say hi in the comments and let us know, again, where you're joining us from. There will be 2 opportunities for Q&A, one after Jaclyn speaks and one after I give you some thoughts on how to activate your authority later. Cool.
Yay. Well, I will share my screen. I'm still learning how to take compliments. So if I had weird faces as we were, that's something I'm working on personally with my own design. So here we go. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes and introduce myself, and then I'm going to dive really deep into my special happy nerdy place, which is going into the details for what is heart manifested authority, what's heart projected authority, what does it feel like in your body, how are you going to experience it? But also I want to just introduce myself first. So as Mélissa said, my name is Jaclyn Michelle. I started building Interior Creature, my website, in 2018. When I first came to human design, very kind of similar to Mélissa, I had left a corporate situation that had basically eaten my life. I know, like, people talk about like their job kind of swallowing their entire identity. Like, that was me and me for years. I basically lost touch with who I was outside of what I did for other people. And I've always been into the metaphysical, the spiritual, the esoteric. I was that kid in the library, like sneaking books on like astrology and astro projection, like under my Sweet Valley High. So like people wouldn't, like, I thought I was really slick. My mom was like, no, we know. But I've always been into kind of this space. And when I left to corporate, I was looking for a tool that would help me again come home to myself. And human design was recommended to me. And once I went down the rabbit hole and saw how insanely powerful this was, one of the things I also noticed was at the time there weren't a lot of people in the space, at least publicly on the internet, like sharing what they knew. And if they were, it felt very out of reach. It felt very just the language that was being used didn't feel very inviting. It didn't feel very accessible. So I wanted to build the resource that I wish I had when I was starting. So that's where Interior Creature comes from. And if you go to my website at the top, you'll see there's 2 different blogs. Both of them have ridiculous amounts of information that I've compiled over the years of just like giving you resources to hack your own human design chart and start kind of the deep work of deconditioning and uncovering yourself. And there's about 20 to 30,000 folks a month who just come to my website to decode their chart for free. In 2018, I also started giving readings. I kind of got pushed out of the nest to do that, but it's been like my singular joy. And I literally, like, I've given about 2,000, a little over 2,000 since then. But lately, what also has been giving me a lot of pleasure, a lot of joy as a sacral generator has been expanding my offerings. So I still do readings, and I do them at 3 different entry points because I want to meet you where you are on your human design journey. I know that some people come to me and they're literally they just heard what it was. They're not sure if it's different than Myers-Briggs. Maybe they're a little astro curious. And I kind of lay out the whole, like, let me introduce it to you. But I also offer readings for folks who've been on this journey for a while and are maybe like, well, I know these things about my chart, but maybe there's aspects of the chart that are confusing or still feel a little bit nebulous. Like, I can clarify that for you and also give you a lot of actionable tools. So I also teach the system. I used to be an educator. I have my master's of science in teaching. So I have classes that you can utilize to learn the system of human design. And then I've built 2 communities. One's called Catalyst and one is called the Karmic Studies Elevator. In the Karmic Studies Elevator, that's where we do that shadow work that Mélissa mentioned. We really focus on the deconditioning process, and we use just wisdom from astrology, from human design, from the gene keys to really go through each one of our placements and get back in alignment with like the higher aspects of that energy, and but also while accepting all the vibrations that energy can have. And then I just launched Catalyst, which is a community for spiritual seekers. And I'm sure that'll come up later. And if you're just wondering, like, who is this person that's talking to me? I'm a generator with sacral authority. I have a overwhelmingly open chart. So if we've got manifestors and projectors here today who have that predominant openness in their chart, I know not every projector, not every manifestor does. That's something I can absolutely relate to. And my nerdiness comes from me being a 1-3. right across the Garden of Eden. Anyway, and last little thing about me before we get into the content, in case you hear any snorts, grumbles, barks, yips in the background, my other passion beyond human design is rescue, animal rescue. I have 3 amazing rescue dogs. They're all in various stages of slumber around my apartment right now, but just in case UPS decides to deliver early today and you hear some, kerfluffle in the background, it's my lovely dogs. But let us talk. Oh, we're not talking about splenic. It moved up in the presentation. Let's go back. There we go. Let's talk about heart manifested authority. Okay, so we're going to talk about heart manifested first. Then we're going to talk about heart projected authority, what it is, what it means, what it feels like. So one of the first kind of premises of human design that you want to I want to just frame for you here is we want to try to get out of our brain and get into our body. And I think that's something that most of us, a lot of us, especially, growing up here in the States for me, like I was raised by a professor and an accountant. And when I was a child, when I was given information about how to make decisions, how to process things, it was always given to me as a very much like make a pros and cons list or rationalize it, talk to someone, use someone as a sounding board. Like all of the like advice and counsel I was given was very intellectually, rational, intellectual, logical, right? But what human design says is actually each of us has our own very unique, very personalized, intuitive voice. We have a part of our body that speaks to us and is really good at just sensing what's ours, what someone else's, like what are the things we should walk forward to because they feel expansive, they feel aligned, and what are the things we should walk away from. And the body basically knows better than the brain sometimes. The brain, we can rationalize almost anything. Our brain's great at playing devil's advocate. It's great at seeding doubt and kind of, putting little granules of anxiety in there. We want to try to let our body speak its wisdom. And that's incredibly true today for this heart manifested authority. So if you have heart manifested authority in your chart, you also may have seen it referred to as ego manifested or will manifested. Again, every software uses sometimes slightly different terminology for the different centers in the body. But basically, if you have heart manifested authority in your chart, you've got your heart center defined. It's connected somehow to your throat, maybe via another center. It could be, connected via your self center to your throat, or it could be specifically that channel of money that goes right up from the heart to the throat. But basically, it's your heart speaking its desire out into existence. And sometimes it's doing that in conjunction with the self center. Sometimes it's not. So the only folks who can have heart manifested authority are manifestors. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But they also have every other center that could be an authority open. So solar plexus is going to be open in your chart. So will the root, so will the sacral, so will the spleen center. Basically the heart then of all the centers that are left is the most powerful. So it steps in and it becomes the authority. So our heart center is really interesting. So I always note this because I get this feedback sometimes. If you look at where the heart center lives, you'll see the big pink arrow on my screen. I know anatomically that is not where the heart lives in the body. This is a metaphorical energetic map. So like we want to kind of step away from that. But the heart does kind of represent, I think, some of the things we would think the heart would represent. It represents commitment. It governs our energy around desire, around our willpower. I like to think of the heart as telling us what we want and what we will, what we want and what we can do, what we want to commit to. So folks who have this center closed, y'all are already in kind of the minority of the way this center is distributed across the population. I think it's about, and again, every book has a different set of figures, but it's about 80% of the world has this center open. So if not more, right? So if you have it closed, you're already kind of in a small percentage of people. And then to have it closed and have that be the most powerful center in your body, it's an even kind of smaller subset of folks, right? So heart manifested authority, what you're basically listening for is your body's messages around what you want and what you can commit to, and what you do not want and what you cannot commit to. And one of the things you're going to notice is because it's located below the neck, there's a very visceral physical sensation that the heart will give you. And the heart's one of our 4 energy centers. So some of my folks that have heart manifested authority or even the heart closed in their chart will notice themselves using kind of proximity and distance as a means of kind of communicating, their body communicating to them what they want and what they don't. So think of it as like you're at a restaurant, you open the menu, there's something on that menu that looks really good. It's like your body physically kind of leans in toward that dish, right? It's your body kind of putting proximity between you and the thing that you want. And it happens almost unconsciously. It just, your body just kind of does that. It's like a vetting tool. And if it's something that you don't want, if it's something that does not feel good, the body typically uses distance. It's like when you see there's an omelet on that menu that has cilantro and wasabi in the same dish, and you're like, why would you put those tastes together? Like, that is the heart kind of saying, I do not want, I cannot commit to eating that, right? So notice those kind of subtle shifts in your body. Also notice where you get rises of energy. So it may not be the same as that sacral kind of like, ooh, I get to kind of big surge, but you might feel a peak in your energy like, ooh, I want to do that. I'm excited now. I have physical energy for that thing, because the heart is one of those four centers that does govern that physical energy. So again, notice your body's like kind of unconscious proximity and distance, either rocking forward, stepping forward, leaning back, again, using that distance as a tool around what you want and what you don't want. So the only folks that can have heart manifested authority are our manifestors. And our manifestors have this strategy of informing. They're the initiators in human design. They're the instigators. They're the folks that get these ideas, these impulses. They're very spontaneous, and they just start walking toward the thing. And they use their not self theme of anger and their signature of peace to kind of help them figure out, like, what is the thing that is for you, what feels peaceful and easeful and really good, and where are you getting pissed off? Where do you feel like there's a wall that's blocking you, or you feel like this just isn't going the way it should be? Anger, resistance is your body's way of letting you know it's time to pivot. And because your sacral center is open, as a manifester, that's a lot easier for you than it is for any of the other types in human design, beyond maybe projectors and reflectors. The vast majority of folks who fall into that generator man gen category really struggle sometimes to pivot very quickly. But manifestors can do that. So we want to think about, when we're thinking about heart manifested authority, we want to think about how it works with this idea of informing as a decision-making strategy. So who can have our heart manifested authority or ego manifested authority? Only manifestors. And it's something you're going to use for both big and small decisions. So as I mentioned before, it can present in two ways. It can either be the heart connected to the throat, and that's it. That's the only two sides. Maybe your head and your mind are defined, but remember, the head and the mind don't make decisions. They're not part of that. So it's the throat and the heart. Or sometimes it's the throat, the self, and the heart connected to each other in some way. So what you listen to make your decision is going to be really governed by the heart, because it's the most powerful. But if you also have your self center closed, I would invite you to stay around and listen to the heart projected authority, because there might be parts of that that also resonate with you as well, because your self is saying, hey, this feels like me, this doesn't, in conjunction with your heart going, I have energy for this, I don't. And just luckily, the way that our centers are configured, like, if the self is defined, it will be connected to the heart in some way. So they'll be working together and kind of backing each other up as they make their decisions. That's the cool thing about our centers in human design. When they're connected to each other via a channel, they tend to vote together. So it's not like the self is going to be like, oh, this doesn't feel like me, and the heart's like, but I want it. Like, if they're connected to each other, as they normally are for heart manifested authority, they're going to be speaking to you with one voice. It's going to both feel like you, and it's going to feel like something you can commit to and that you want. So manifestors, while you're doing whatever the thing is you're doing, you're interviewing for a job, you're on a first date, you're shopping and deciding if you want to buy that shirt, you're checking in with yourself as you're doing the thing, and you're looking for your sensations of desire, your sensations of commitment, like, and keep asking yourself, is this something I want? Can I commit to it? How does it feel in my body? Are you leaning in toward the thing? Do you find that you're using proximity and distance? And again, it's basically your body speaking your desire into existence through that bridge that is your throat center. In human design, we think of the throat as the seat of manifestation, because it's literally where our thoughts go to become words, to become actions, where all of our desires, sensations, impulses go to become words, to become actions. And the heart being that source of desire, it being tapped into the throat, you're speaking your desire into existence. So really getting a sense of, what does desire feel like to me? Like, how does my body talk to me when it tells me I want, or it tells me I'm excited, I can commit, versus, oh, I don't want, or I can't commit, right? So being really in touch with what that feels like in your body is going to be really important. Now, heart projected authority is slightly different, because we don't have the throat defined for folks who have this, right? So this becomes the realm of just projectors, because now it's a little bit more subtle. So folks with heart manifested authority might even find themselves being able to say things like, "Oh, I want that," or "Oh, that feels really good," or "Oh, I can't wait to." Like, because it's connected, your body can give a little bit more language to those feelings of desire. For projectors that have heart projected authority, it can be really difficult because it's just the heart and the self in conversation by themselves. And it's more of a physical sensation in the body, and it doesn't necessarily have that connection to the throat to speak it into existence as clearly. So this really does become almost like an exercise in embodiment, an exercise in anchoring yourself within your body. And when it feels safe and good to do so, trusting that your heart and yourself are acting in your highest good, acting in your highest interest, and really trying to share with you what's something that feels like you and what doesn't, right? So the self-center, kind of adding her to the equation, the self-center, think of it as governing our ethics, our morals, our values, our sense of self, what feels like us, what doesn't. If you're thinking about this from a business perspective, to kind of, quote Mélissa, it's like, is this on brand for you or not? Does it feel within, like, your brand's identity? Is it something I'd be proud to put my name on? Right? Is it something I'd be proud to be known as, associated with? So the self, it's that yellow diamond in the middle of the chart. And it actually used to be the same center as the heart center. So if you notice a little bit of overlap between who am I and what do I want, like, that's probably why they govern very similar things. At least I think they used to be one center, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, the heart, so the heart speaks with like distance and proximity. The self speaks with expansion and contraction. So a lot of my clients who have this defined will literally tell me that when something feels like them, it feels like a rising of energy in the chest. It feels like an expansion in the chest of like, ooh, this feels like me. Like, oh, this is something I want to put my name on. I used to be an elementary school teacher. So I always think about my littles when they got like an A on the test and they wanted to show mom, and they'd run up to them in the schoolyard. They're like, look, and you could just see the expansion, the smile, the like, I want you to know this is me. Like that kind of feeling. That's that self-center, right? And if something doesn't feel like you, the body tends to speak with a language of contraction and discomfort. You almost feel like you're shrinking away, and again, it's another kind of distance, but you might feel it more centrally located in the chest of your body, basically saying, "Ooh, don't put my name on that. I don't want to be known with that thing." Think of it as that maybe that time you were working on a group project and maybe other people didn't do the parts they were supposed to, and yet you had to still turn that thing in, and you're like, "Ooh, this is not representative of me." Like that's that self-center kind of feeling of, I don't want my name on that, right? So what's cool about heart projected authority is the heart and the self are basically speaking to each other and basically collaborating and backing each other up and deciding, when we speak with kind of our separate voices, we're going to send the same message. Something either has to feel like, yes, I can commit to it and it feels like me, or your body is going to have a hard time like sending you that energy of yes. So it's really like you're noticing expansion, contraction, proximity, and distance kind of concurrently. And this is the realm of projectors, right? For someone to be a manifester, they have to have their throat closed and it has to be connected to an energy center. So in charts that have heart projected authority, that throat center is open. So that by default, again, as long as the sacral is also open as well, that makes this person a projector. So projectors have a slightly different strategy in human design. Manifestors just inform. They do really strategic informing as they're figuring out like which path feels peaceful and easeful, which path is making me angry and it's not the right one. And they're just strategically informing along the way so people can like clear obstacles, people can co-create with them. Projectors, they're in the majority of us that have the word wait in our strategy. And so for projectors, they have a very different role. They're not the initiators and instigators, they're the guides. They're here because they can either see people better than they can see themselves, or they can see a process better than other people can see it, sometimes a combination of both. And so for them to be in the right situations with the right people, the right audience who cannot wait to hear their guidance, their wisdom, etc., they want to make sure that they are recognized first and that their involvement is actively sought. They're invited, they feel included, right? So what they're using as their litmus test is this waiting. They're waiting for their body to tell them, yes, this feels like me. Yes, this is something I can commit to. And it's going to be used for small and large decisions. Like someone asks you to get coffee, like drop into your body. Can I commit to having coffee with this person? Is it something I want to do? And am I going to be, I know this sounds kind of I don't mean for it to sound judgmental, but is this somebody that I want to be seen out with in person? Like, is this somebody that I want to be associated with? Right. So it's the heart and the self basically collaborating together, and they're being that decision maker and using, again, that language of expansion and contraction. And what's challenging is, for this authority specifically, is because it's not connected to the throat, it may not speak as loudly or use words as easily as folks who maybe have that heart manifested. So it really is like dropping into your body. I have told projectors with this authority, sometimes it's helpful to put a hand on your chest. Sometimes it's helpful to just like note your body language as you're, hearing the opportunity. Like, how is your body like basically reacting before you have a chance to analyze it, think about it, like process it in that way. You also might want to sit with it though, because everyone's a little bit different. I know personally, I was sharing yesterday, I have a history of trauma. I'm a survivor of sexual violence. When I was first coming to human design and even feeling into my own centers that are closed, I wasn't used to being in my body. I was very used to suppressing, rejecting, ignoring, like pretending it wasn't there. It wasn't working out for me though. And it took a while for me, for basically my nervous system to kind of regulate enough where I was able to kind of drop in and say, what is my body trying to tell me? And it felt safe to listen to it. So that's another thing to kind of think about with that self center and that heart center being closed. If you're feeling like a lot of my clients have shared with me that they have a harder time sometimes pinning down what this actually feels like in their body, sometimes it helps to sit with it a little bit. Literally get by yourself, put a hand on your chest, like, and wait, feel, do I feel like I'm, say it was a job opportunity. Do I feel like I am seen, heard, valued, included by these people? And I'd be proud to introduce them as my coworkers. I'd be super excited to like put my name on this project. Is this something I can commit to? Is this something I feel really excited about? Is this something I am like, oh, I want this title. I want to work on this team. Or, and again, you'll notice yourself leaning forward, you'll notice yourself expanding. Or is it something where you're like, I don't know that I want that title, that it just doesn't feel like me, or I don't know if I can commit to those hours or those responsibilities. Again, you're kind of like looking and you're measuring both. And again, the heart is technically the stronger of the centers, but I always kind of tell people like, you're not broken if you feel your self center louder, or not at all. Like everybody's I guess, embodiment with feeling their centers. It's a journey. It's a continuum. I remember sharing with Mélissa when I first came to human design, I read about all the ways the sacral is supposed to talk to you because that's my authority. And I literally was like, I must be dead inside. I don't feel that. So if you're in that part of your journey where you're like, I'm not feeling these yet, like we're going to talk about different exercises and things you can do to drop back into your body, to start kind of noticing on lower stakes things where you feel that commitment, that desire, where you feel that expansion, that identification, and where you don't. And then again, advocating for that as you kind of walk forward. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to pause and we're going to take some questions from y'all. It's hard. And I see Lisa has one right at the top. So I don't know if you want to moderate, go ahead. I was just jumping.
We already covered that. So
yeah, we did.
Covered that first question for Lisa. You already hit it, which was around heart projected authority being the same as ego authority.
Oh yeah.
Welcome, Lisa. We see that you're
Hi,
a one ego heart manifester.
Oh yeah.
That. And I love, so Lisa, let us know if you have any questions. But now that we also have like the 1-3 involved and things like that, any thoughts on that, Jaclyn Michelle?
Oh. As a 1-3, yes, I'm a 1-3. I always joke that I'm the nerd that also needs to like get into the test kitchen. Like I can't just read all the cookbooks, although I'm going to. I need to crack some eggs at the same time to like learn how to metaphorically cook. So yeah, that it's interesting. I think what was hard for me as the one, like every resource tends to call things something different. So you go to run your chart and you're like, oh, this says heart manifested. And then you go somewhere else and it says, this says ego manifested. And then this says, will manifest. Like it's like tomato. They're just calling it different things, right? I wish we'd have like a common language, but we can speak multiple dialects of human design.
I love that. And I think what's interesting about that is like with the whole manifester thing, depending on how deep you get into the one, it can get a little difficult sometimes to just go when you're ready to go and you're like actually feel into your body and be like, I can actually make these moves just based on my guidance, just based on my intuition. And I don't need to go down a rabbit hole of research
Because the one feels like I don't know enough yet. Like I need to know everything. So there's always this little tension. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
And so no, but that was kind of what I noticed. Like right off the bat when I saw that, Lisa, I was like, ooh, I could see how depending on how you're sitting in your profile and kind of playing with those things, that could just be a little bit of a it doesn't have to be a hurdle, but it could be a little bit of resistance depending on how you're living it. So definitely let us know if you have any questions. I know we have a couple people online. As they come in, we will take them. But in the meantime, I wanted Jaclyn to talk about Catalyst really quick.
Ooh, I will in a second. One thing that I just popped up as we were talking.
Yeah.
So one of the there's going to be a really cool opportunity to play with that idea of like trying something new that maybe you're not super familiar with the transits that are coming up. So if you pop over to my Instagram account, I just posted this morning your guide to Mars retrograde, and it walks you through, and they're all action-oriented throat center gates. So as a manifester, like you may have some of these activated. So when a planet goes retrograde, I guess the vibe is like slow down, revisit, review, revise, etc. And it's going through some of our gates 16 and 35 over the next couple months, which are all about what am I experimenting with? How am I, what happens when I fail for the first time, which are all themes that as threes, we need to kind of get used to kind of learning through failure and learning through like bumping up against things. So anyway, I think that might be an interesting post to flag, because those are some things that are going to come up right as we transition from 2022 to 2023.
And if you're not already following Jaclyn, so these handles are our Instagram handles. So she's at Interior Creature. I'm at Curly Executive. She's been recently posting content pretty much for like every major transit that's coming up, like month to month at least. And so the content is week to week, but she'll post them every month. So definitely click on in because there's gold in that. And that is your shadow work practice. That is what you need, and it's free, and she's made it accessible, and it's online, and anybody can get it. So definitely jump on that because it's a great resource. Do you want to quickly tell them about Catalyst before we jump action around
absolutely
projected and heart manifested?
Yeah. So Catalyst is my new community. It's there's actually two kind of wings of Catalyst. There's Catalyst Spark for folks who are just kind of having their spiritual awakening or getting into kind of the woo-woo metaphysical esoteric. I know, like I shared, I was that kid hiding the library books. Like it can feel a little bit lonely when you first kind of stumble upon this path and you want to explore, but you're not sure how to talk about it or who to talk about it with or what modalities even speak to you. So that's what Catalyst Spark is for. Is to kind of explore in community in an open-minded, curious, safe space where we're, digging into human design. We're learning the basics of astrology. We're digging into tarot, like all these kind of metaphysical, esoteric, spiritual practices with just the spirit of curiosity and kind of that beginner's mentality. So that is launching actually this weekend. We have our first workshop. We're doing the basics of human design. So if you're interested in knowing where the system came from, like what are other types beyond my own, other, profiles beyond my own, we're going to be digging into type, center, strategy, authority, and just the history of the system. And then Catalyst Fire is for folks who are a little bit farther along the path. And it's funny, like I personally felt very lonely at the beginning when I was in my kind of spark phase of like, who do I talk to? Like, who are my other witchy folks where I can like have these conversations? Catalyst Fire is basically your virtual coven. It's other folks who are a little bit farther down the path who want to have deeper, more nuanced conversations with just folks who are kind of parallel in that journey. So we're going to be, instead of doing like a birth chart basics, our first workshop is going to be how do you use your human design chart to do shadow work? Like assuming people are already kind of familiar with that modality. And so again, it's just two different wings of the same kind of creature. And we come together monthly for book talks. They're called Catalyst Conversations, where we're digging into a different text. We're talking about it. And so think of it again, it's just your online community of like soulful seekers who, just want to meet and nerd out together. It's your witchy little coven online. So I would love to have you if that's something you're interested in.
Yes, and I'll see you there if you end up.
Yeah.
All right, so we are gonna jump into action, and I love this authority because I have a defined heart. It's pretty defined. I think every gate except one. There's not many in there, and for me, it is I would say before I came to human design, it's what I felt the most. So for me, my heart really rules and I do feel it. And sometimes my sacral has to check my heart, and usually on timing, because they are aligned, but it's just like, it's not the time for that yet, sweetie. I know your heart is being called to it. And so I loved kind of going through this, and it even brought me different revelations of where I was in misalignment and what that felt like. And it is not fun when you are out of alignment. And so if this is your authority, we are going to be, or I'm going to be launching different sets of guides. And so we have been previewing this over the last couple of days. So for my splenic authority people and our emotional authority, we previewed the back end of woofulness.com. Everyone who is registered is going to get a dedicated guide free for their authority. And so I'll show you what that looks like if this allows me to share my screen. This is the one that we showed off for splenic. And essentially, we're going to give you this guide. It'll have the replay in it, so you can always come back to this content. And it's going to go through 3 stages: feel, heal, and flow. And it'll give you all sorts of details. And you know what's fun? These are actually the first 2. Some of them repeat because some of them are relevant to all authorities. And so these are actually the first 2 that are also still relevant to heart manifested and heart projected. And so the first one being practice presence. Right? Presence is so important. We need to feel your body. So much of this is about dropping into your body. When it comes to my heart center, right? I don't have the same authority, but one of the things I was telling with Jaclyn is I'll feel that call, that pull in my heart. And then very quickly, right after that, my mind engages with all the reasons why I shouldn't want the thing that I want, or all the reasons why I maybe should wait, right? And so these are some of the kind of basic presence things. Like, we really need to learn how it feels to be relaxed in our body, how it feels to actually be calm when we understand the difference between noise in our mind versus, using that as guidance, and getting to balance. So meditation, yoga, qigong, dance. But what I really want to show you here, and I did make another framework for you, is I made frameworks for each authority. For the people who are comfortable with feeling into their heart, then ACT still works really well. ACT can be a framework for heart projected and heart manifested, which is acknowledge this inner knowing. And then you may need to communicate these decisions. If you need to, and this is because we live in a world where we have to interact with people. So even if that's just informing, right? We have to inform. Sometimes we need to communicate them because they're going to affect other people, right? But that doesn't mean we're going to change what we're going to do. But that communication is valuable. And then take action and transmute any funky frequencies if necessary. I like to say that for these authority types because they're not as easy to explain and to describe to other people. Now, I'm about to tell you all the other goodies that are going to be in here. And again, as long as you've registered for email, you will get them. But within heart, I realized that a lot of people struggle, initially at least, to feel their heart's desires. That can be subtle. For me, they're at the point where it feels like a pull. It feels like I'm magnetized to something. And so I kind of laugh because I'll get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'll get to the point where I think, okay, I know this is coming for me. I was doing some tech things because I realized I hadn't removed you from the stream, Jaclyn. So I'm sorry about that. But I was like, it didn't look like you were there on my end because you so graciously turned your camera off. But you're good now. So for me, it will feel like, oh shit, I know I want that. That's coming later. And I can now be like, okay, I feel called to this. I feel magnetized to this. So later it can really be a strong calling pull when you learn to tap into it and when you get really in tuned with it. And that's the beauty of learning your authority over time. But if it doesn't feel like that, I'm going to give you a different acronym, a different framework, and know that every bit of this will be written down. You will get it via email by next week, and you'll have this beautiful guide that you can play with. But heart is going to be your acronym. We made it easy to understand. Heart. Hear your heart. The H in heart is hear your heart desires, right? We need to learn to listen to our heart. We need to learn our method of checking in with that. And I'm going to give you some different ways that we can explore that. The E is the external, right? Though I know what I'm doing and what I want, and I'm going to go for it, there may be some communication with others that might be my inform. Just make sure whatever that communication is, it aligns with your strategy. And this is where we don't let it override, which is where the A of heart comes in, accepting self. So much of us have been trained out of our desires, our ego. Ego is a bad thing. As Lisa pointed out, this is also called like ego projected authority. The ego is part of it. And so accepting self, accepting the desires of self. And then that comes into the R, releasing the desires of others. That gut check of, am I committing this energy towards something I truly desire? Or is it something that somebody else is desiring or may want, right? And then finally, the T in heart is take action. Okay. And so this is if we are shaking. If we're shaking, then again, we hear that heart. We think about the people who are going to be impacted by it. We align with our authority, our strategy, and do what we need to do. We accept ourselves. We release the desires of others and we take action. So HEART. All right. So then we've got different activities that we can play with to see how we feel. One of the things I love to do is my inventory of promises. Am I keeping my promises to myself? I go through the list and I write down all of the things I promised myself is late. And sometimes I do this. Sometimes if I have like, okay, I know this, I'll do it real time. Other times I watch myself like over the course of a month. And I do this with my clients and we say, have we been keeping our promises to myself? When we look at that, we'll start seeing some patterns. Sometimes it's patterns of overcommitting, right? Sometimes it's patterns of not finishing things. And that starts to get us into questions related to, am I following my authority? And so digging into the promises that you make to yourself and paying attention to whether or not you've been able to keep them is really relevant. And it's so important because when I was digging into like the readings about Rahu, which you'll find out is like, when you don't actually follow your heart authority, you can legit get sick. You can get sick. And this is one person, I'm going to go into some personal stories with you, but I'm going to manage time. So I'm not going to go into this one, but I have been having so many revelations because I had some illness related to my heart. And I kind of question, with me having such a defined heart center, how much of that is related to not following my desires, not following my wants. Jaclyn's like nodding her head and clapping in the background because she's seeing the shadow work in action. So then the next step, so that's feel, right? We're trying to feel. Another thing I love with feel too more for you is body language. Body language, Jaclyn's been talking about this pull forward, pull back, this expansion, right? I will record people sometimes and have them watch themselves. So you can record yourself. You can also have someone watch you. And it's such a powerful thing to record yourself and talk about things. So sometimes we'll do this in decision making when someone's trying to decide between two things. Talk about both of them. Watch yourself back on the video because you can't help it. Like you will literally see the body reactions. And so watch yourself and listen to the tone of your voice and pay attention. The expansion and contraction sometimes feels like a breath, like an exhale. Like I see that person exhale. So pay attention to these two with your body language. The other one, I'm calling it, I want it, I got it. Partly because this reminds me of Ariana Grande, and partly because when I was learning to listen to the desires of my heart, song really helped me. And so the questions you're really trying to answer are, where have I suppressed my ego? Am I comfortable with stating I want? What does using I, me, my statements feel like in the body, right? These are some of the questions. Are you able to do that? And for me, my journey, I went to Wellesley College. And as a woman, depending on how how you were raised, your conditioning, what school you went to. Oftentimes we learn to suppress our voice very early. Usually because men learn to speak up a little earlier than we do. And so we have that dynamic. So at Wellesley College, they spend a lot of time saying, use your voice, speak up, tell us what you want. Like, you're here to be able to do that in an environment where you don't have competition in that same way. And so for me, that was really active, and it was something that felt extremely comfortable to me back then. Then I went through corporate and all of that got diminished. And so the song helped me pump it up. There are some fire songs that are really around, I'm going to get what I want. And so I would literally practice singing them. And that was another method, fun method to just, again, get used to it, because some of this is just practice. Next we get into heal. So all of that was feel. We're trying to feel it. Heal. Heal is my framework for all the things. It is hold space, expand into the vision of what is possible for you, take aligned action, and then let it go, let it flow. Again, you're going to get all of this when we send you out the replay and the details. This is my shadow work and abundance practice. Okay. And so the shadow work on this is deep. For these specific authority types, I highly recommend deeper shadow work around the conditioning that you have as it relates to stating your wants and your desires, right? How is ignoring my own desires hurt me is a big question that I have. And though, how has my drive hurt others? Many of us feel like our own drive has hurt or impacted someone badly in the past. And so sometimes we will suppress our own ego because we think it's all bad, right? What labels has having this authority given me, right? And also, right, where does it inspire others? This is where we get into the expand, right? What could it really be like if I truly followed my wants, if I truly followed my desires, right? What aligned actions do I need to take? My quick thing on this is that for years, like for me, it's been this journey of unlocking layer after layer after layer. For years, I was conditioned that my wants were very much intertwined with my family's wants. Like literally, I believed that the things that made me happy were making other people happy. Anyone who said that, like, it makes me happy to make other people happy. That's very true. However, it also felt like if other people weren't happy, I couldn't be happy. And my wants needed to have some kind of relationship with other people's wants, desires, etc. And it was something I was trained at from a very young age, probably because I legitimately enjoy making people happy. And then that got reinforced, and then that got reinforced, and then I got lost somewhere in the process. And so at some point in time, I realized I could not disconnect my wants, my desires from other people's happiness. If they weren't happy, there were things that I had to change, right? And some of that led to overcommitting in a big way, to doing a lot of things I didn't want to do, but I didn't even realize I didn't want to do them. Okay. And I say that because that shows the depth of the conditioning. And through shadow work, through continuously following my authority, through a bunch of woo-woo stuff, through implementing woofulness, woo-woo plus mindfulness practices, I've become more and more aware of this and been able to release that. And so as it relates to matters of the heart in general, where we're talking about heart chakra, heart authority, I highly recommend some kind of shadow work practice. And then we get to flow. So flow, those presence practices are going to help. How are you going to flow with this, right? Now that we've done some healing work, now that we've learned to feel it, we've got to flow with it on a day-to-day basis. And so the presence comes in there again, right? Meditation, yoga, qigong, dance, those are ones I love. Breath work, like just anything that gets you into your body. Breath work is one I want to call out specifically for the heart. Recently, something I've been experimenting with my clients, and I just realized I didn't introduce myself. So let's go with, I'm Mélissa Peng. And I have been, the part I want to tell you is that I am working right now through a certification in breath work, but I've been a yogi for 13 plus years. I'm now getting certified in that. Do work in Qigong, sound healing, and all of those different spaces. And then I have a whole decade worth of corporate career in marketing, working for very big brands. And so it's okay. Today, I got really into heart because I'm all into this. So if you really want to know more about me, feel free to check out any of the other ones where I fully introduce myself. But today I wanted to say that part because as I've been working with my clients, it has been enormous to combine breath work with visioning or breath work with helping them dig into their desires. So we'll do a little breath work and then we'll ask them, what do you want? And then it will blurt out. And it's beautiful and it's brilliant. And it's kind of been working every time. Sometimes I have a little sound plus breath work. And so breath work is extremely powerful. Now you may need to find the right person to do it with. And breath is kind of free and you can do it on your own. So I would encourage you to explore that if you're looking for different ways. And finally, in flow, writing a love letter to your authority. It's something that I recommend time and time again. But this one, I'm going to give it a little bit of extra notes. So this is the idea. I want you to write a letter to your authority. How do you really feel about it? If you're like, I hate you, authority. You confuse me. I can't hear you. Like, I'm trying to do things the right way, but you're not talking to me. Whatever it is you really feel, get that there. And then you're going to rewrite it with empowered language, with loving language, right? I want you to love on your heart authority. Now, when you're writing that initial note, if you have heart manifested, I would definitely want to make sure that you cover the idea of trusting your voice in some capacity. So when you write your love letter, you remember that trusting your voice is part of it. And there are things you're going to love about that when it feels good to you. And then trusting that the invitation is coming for my projected people, right? Because in that trust, in that moment that we trust that the invitation is coming, we get to prepare, we get to do all sorts of fun things. And so love on that too. Those can be some sticking points, but love on that too. Finally, I like to bring up this idea of energy ergonomics. So how do we translate energetics to business? This is one of my big core things I'm working on. We spend a lot of time at work. And so we need to be able to translate our authority and all these wonderful things to work. And also when we understand how everybody is set up and designed, we can create better, more compassionate environments. Hi, Michelle. And so as it relates to work, a few notes for this authority type. Ownership is really important. And so thinking about what, like there's a boss quality about this authority. And we need to be in control about like our work to rest ratio. And that becomes extremely important. So we want to understand ownership. We want to understand the scope of the things we're working on. And we want to get to a place where we're not overcommitting to things that are not ours or not in alignment with our desires. We want to be able to communicate that effectively. The other piece is like coming into a role, or let's say you don't work with other people, but you work for yourself. You probably have an idea of things you want, do not want. Michelle, who just said hi, one of the things that we did when we first started working together is creating a wants, do not wants list. So it's really important to kind of start establishing that. It's something I like to do every quarter. And though the wants will change moment to moment, remember that part. Having an established list, especially your do not wants, is really helpful up front. And that is the feel, heal, and flow. We still have some folks in the audience. If you have any questions about anything I just said, because that was a lot, feel free to type them in the chat. And then also know that if you have gone through the formal registration process, we know some people are coming in via email, some people are coming in just off of YouTube. If you just came off of YouTube and you found us, one, you're amazing. Like, hello, how did you get here? Yes, yes. And then also you can head to woofulness.com/authority. And even though this is a past event, you can retroactively register. You will get the beautiful guide. You'll get some goodies from Jaclyn as well. And you'll get to start this amazing relationship and this journey with your authority with two really fun friends who are happy to nerd out and help you in any way that we can.
I am so happy that you mentioned overcommitment, because that is something I totally forgot to talk about. Like, I cannot tell you how many heart manifested, heart projected folks that I work with that, because of our conditioning, because of capitalism, like, so many of us get the conditioning when we're little that like our value is directly proportional to our contribution, which is not true. But it's hard to convince the body otherwise. So I can't tell you how many heart projected, heart manifested folks I've worked with where their body is telling them no, but they are suppressing, they are pushing down. And just like you mentioned, it's other people. Yeah. So yeah, you're worthy of having your wants, and you're worthy of knowing your body's upper limit for contribution.
And it's so hard with that one. That came out of literally today, because we can be in the most safe spaces, collaborating with our favorite people, and still feel this need to keep up or make sure that we are giving in not just an equal value, but in an equal type of execution.
Yeah.
I say that because so often people dismiss or ignore their value when it arrives in ways that are not as visible or that are not as traditional. And when you do that, it gets easy to get into the shadow, right? The shadow self of this, and be like, oh, I need to do it in this way because I want to make sure that, and you're trying to make sure other people are okay often, but you're hurting yourself in the process.
And I just want to say, like, for folks who have their heart defined and don't feel like it speaks to you, or don't feel like it's communicating, like, what has helped a lot of my clients is starting with the open heart stuff, because sometimes they'll say that actually resonates more. And then you'll realize where you're outsourcing your decisions, or where you might be like, letting other people's, like you were saying, other people's desires, because that sometimes becomes habituated. The message our heart sends can never be conditioned. It's always coming from us, but whether we listen to it or not can. So like, you're not broken. If this is something you're like not feeling 100%, like, we can wake it back up again and like get you the life that feels, amazing. And also, hi, Michelle. I saw you go. I was like, ah!
If anyone has any more questions for today, definitely let us know. We're going to hang out for another 2 or 3 minutes. And yeah, so just feel free to post questions, because we definitely want to answer them. If you're like, I don't have any questions right now, but I'm going to have some later, feel free to hit us up on Instagram. These are our handles. And know that if you've registered for this, you're going to hear from us. You're going to get emails from us, and you're part of the family now. I will take this moment to talk about myself a little bit.
Yes, please.
And I'm not going to do the formal introduction, but I am going to talk about this energy ergonomics movement that is brewing, and that is happening, and that is real now. And so definitely from a standpoint of how can you make a difference? How can you make a difference in the world, right? You can make a difference in the world by knowing yourself, by honoring yourself, by honoring your authority, by getting really deep about how you work, and by communicating that with others. Partly because in that communication, it will catalyze an understanding in them that maybe they need to go do some work too, and that maybe they're different. The first time I learned from Queen Jaclyn, thank you, Michelle. What really blew my mind was the thought that people didn't have a gut feeling, partly because my sacral, and really my heart, thought it was my sacral, but my heart was really active, and my sacral was really active in like the, oh no, I do not want this, like in a big way. And it just didn't make sense to me that people didn't have that, especially because the number of times as a coach that I had asked around like questions around, what does your gut say? Everyone said, like, they gave me an answer. Instead of letting me know, I just don't have that feeling. And so just knowing that blew my mind. Learning about someone else blew my mind. And it got me more open to saying, maybe the lens I'm viewing the world with is my own. Maybe I can start looking at things differently. Maybe there's another form of inclusivity. And so that is the work of energy ergonomics. We're taking all of this amazing, beautiful woo-woo knowledge that's coming from different birth chart sources and all sorts of places. And we are making that accessible. We're translating it in different ways, and we're bringing it back in to make life and work beautiful. Because when we can acknowledge ourselves, especially in the spaces that we spend so much time in, we can make lasting change, and our change has ripple effects, impacts, and so on and so forth. Let's see. I wish I could bring Michelle up. I wish there was that. We're like, Michelle, come on the line with us. Only because Michelle, she says, my thoughts about helping the world have definitely changed since I was shown my design. I honor how I need to show up for others to save myself. And it's, if y'all could meet Michelle and could meet the Michelle of a year ago, Michelle is a completely different human. Michelle, I just saw this, what was this Instagram post where you pulled over to the side of the street and was talking about how happy you were and just how grateful you were and how everybody's beautiful and all this stuff. And it was so fun because that level of understanding, love, compassion, that's what human design can give you. I'm going to bring you back up, Jaclyn, in a big way, because you can start to just love yourself, honor yourself, and then also for the funky parts, like if you have parts of yourself, and I know I love Michelle, so I'm going to use her. Michelle's got a spicy side, right? The gate of provocation is real, right? She's got a spicy side, and it's there for a very important reason, right? It brings about change. It brings about clarity, like it brings about innovation. But that is not something that is readily talked about and always honored. And so when you learn why and how all of these pieces add up to your purpose, you're unstoppable. And then you are contagious. And that is amazing.
And what I'm excited about, so if you're lit up by this, if you're totally inspired, totally excited, we're about to jump on another one of these. So if you have heart projected authority, especially, and you've got your self-centered defined, we're going to be talking about self-projected authority in literally like a couple minutes. So I would RSVP come back for that one, because we're going to talk all about honoring your sense of self in the world.
Awesome sauce. Thank you for keeping me on time, Jaclyn. We are going to jump over to the next stream, and we will see you in a bit. Bye, Michelle. Bye, Lisa. Thank you so much.